The African Deep Dive podcast is brought to you by the African Technology Policy Studies Network. This podcast explores how science, technology, and innovation can drive sustainable development and global inclusion in Africa.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're getting into something, well, quite tough. Africa's brain drain. We're talking about this significant loss of really highly skilled professionals. Doctors, nurses, engineers, the very people you'd think are crucial for development, choosing to build careers elsewhere.
It really is a human capital crisis, isn't it? I mean, global migration is huge. The UN figured somewhere around 192 million people back in the mid-2000s. But our focus here, it's not just sheer numbers. It's the type of talent Africa is losing.
Exactly. Highly skilled people.
Yeah. The sources we looked at suggest Africa's been losing something like 20,000 professionals every single year since 1990, and specifically in healthcare. Maybe 23,000 emigrating annually. It's quite shocking.
Those yearly numbers are, wow, they're hard to grasp. So, okay, our mission for this deep dive is pretty clear then.
Yeah.
We need to dig into the pressures, right? Yeah. The push factors forcing people out and the pull factors drawing them away.
The push and the pull, yes.
And then try to understand the real cost. What does this do to healthcare, to development in general? And finally, look at the solutions being talked about. Can this drain actually be turned into a gain?
It's a real clash, individuals' aspirations versus the needs of the community, the country.
That's the heart of it.
Okay,
let's unpack this. Let's start with the why, just the basics. Why do people move? Our sources mention a few models, but they seem to circle back to one main economic idea.
That's right. It's often called the human capital model. Basically, people move from places where there's lots of labor, so lower wages, maybe high unemployment.
Right. Surplus labor.
To places where labor is needed, so lower unemployment, higher wages. The individual is essentially trying to get the best return on their investment, their education, their skills.
Makes sense from an individual point of view. Maximize your ROI.
Exactly. There are other models, too, like the household model families, sending members abroad to spread risk, that sort of thing. But that drive for a better return on personal skills, that's a huge engine.
Okay, so if that's the broad economic picture, what are the specific push factors? What makes life so difficult for skilled professionals in Africa that they feel pushed out?
Well, the job market situation it's often dire. We have ILO data showing unemployment and underemployment in sub-Saharan Africa have been higher than global averages for decades, really, since the early 90s.
Consistently higher.
Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes the numbers are just extreme. Like back in 2003, Liberia's unemployment rate estimated at 85%.
85%. Wow. With numbers like that, leaving isn't just a choice. It feels like a necessity, doesn't it?
It really does. And even for those who do get trained, who have the skills, we see this thing the sources call brain waste.
Brain waste. Explain that.
It's where you have, say, qualified doctors or nurses in a country like Nigeria. They've done the training, they're ready to work, but the medical jobs just aren't there. Or they're poorly paid, poorly equipped.
So what happens to them?
They might end up taking jobs in completely different fields. Banking, trading, anything to make a living. Imagine trading in your stethoscope for a spreadsheet because you can't practice medicine. It's an incredible waste.
A waste of their talent and a waste of the country's investment in training them.
Precisely. And for those who do manage to stay in medicine, the conditions can be incredibly tough.
Heavy workloads, low morale.
And serious lack of resources. Think about the doctor-to-patient ratios. Malawi was cited as having one doctor for nearly 50,000 people. That's one of the highest in the world. Uganda, one for almost 25,000.
That's unimaginable pressure on those few doctors.
It is. And it's not just about staff numbers. The facilities themselves are often poorly equipped. Basic things like CT scanners might just not be available. So if you're trained to use modern medical tools and you can't even do your job safely or effectively, that's a powerful push factor.
Okay, so they're being pushed out by lack of opportunity and poor conditions. What about the pull? What are developed countries doing to actively bring them in?
Well, part of it is just structural demand over there. In OECD countries, populations are aging. People are living longer. That means much higher demand for healthcare.
Right. More chronic conditions, more care needed overall.
Exactly. The EU, for instance, was looking at its labor force shrinking, potentially by over 5% by 2020. They simply need skilled workers, especially in healthcare, and they need them now.
And the sources highlighted something really interesting. the financial incentive for these destination countries. It's cheaper for them to recruit from abroad.
Oh, absolutely. It's a significant cost saving, a kind of hidden subsidy, you could say, paid by poorer nations. The UK's National Health Service, the NHS, gets around 30% of its workforce from overseas.
30%.
Yes. And one estimate we saw suggested this saved the NHS something like £2.7 billion. That's money they didn't have to spend on training doctors and nurses domestically because they recruited already trained staff from abroad.
£2.7 billion.
Yeah.
That's quite the saving. And that economic difference, the sheer gap in what someone can earn, must be the biggest pull of all.
It has to be. The wage disparities are just massive, both nominal and real wages. Consider this. A doctor's monthly pay might be, say, US $50 in Sierra Leone. Okay. It jumps significantly in South Africa, maybe to around US $1,200.
A big jump already.
But then, that same doctor in Canada or Australia, they could earn 4 times the South African salary or even more. From a purely economic human capital perspective, that difference is almost impossible to ignore over a career.
And technology makes it easier now, right? The internet.
Definitely. Finding job openings online, connecting with employers or recruitment agencies, it's all much easier than it used to be. Plus, destination countries are quite proactive. They have specific programs. Think of the U.S. Green Card Lottery or the point systems in the U.K. and Australia, Scotland's Fresh Talents Initiative.
Targeted recruitment. They're actively looking for these skills.
Yes, they're not just passively waiting. They are identifying and recruiting the talent they need.
Let's shift to the evidence, the scale of this loss. You mentioned data is hard to get because it's politically sensitive.
Yes, it's awkward for everyone. Source countries don't like admitting they can't provide jobs, and destination countries don't like being accused of poaching talent, so tracking can be difficult.
But even with those limitations, the numbers we do have paint a grim picture, particularly for healthcare.
They do. That estimate of 23,000 health professionals leaving Africa annually, the International Organization for Migration figured over 300,000 African professionals were living outside the continent overall. And this isn't new. Ethiopia reportedly lost 75% of its skilled workforce in just over a decade, from 1980 to 1991.
75%, that's devastating.
It is. More recently, Ghana was reported to have lost over 600 doctors and more than 11,000 nurses between 1993 and 2002 alone.
And you made a crucial point earlier. It's not just the total number of migrants, it's the proportion who are highly skilled.
Exactly. That's key. Africa might not send the largest absolute number of migrants compared to, say, Asia, but the percentage of African migrants who are highly skilled, highly educated, that's among the highest in the world. Nigeria, for example, exports more skilled people than huge countries like Brazil or the Philippines. It's a concentrated loss of top talent.
Yeah, and you also see patterns, right? Following old colonial ties.
Yeah, the data tends to show that. English speakers often heading to the UK, US, Canada, Australia. French speakers maybe more towards France, Belgium, Quebec, and Canada. These established networks, they make it easier for the next person to follow. It creates a path.
So let's talk consequences. The so what of all this. What does this steady drain of talent actually mean for Africa's development?
Well, the UN has called it one of the biggest obstacles. It's a direct loss of human resources, obviously, but it's also a loss of potential tax revenue, innovation, leadership.
And a terrible return on investment for the education systems.
Absolutely terrible. We found one specific, quite shocking example of this. It was estimated that South Africa spent about US $37 million training 600 medical graduates. Okay.
$37 million. That's a huge investment.
And those 600 graduates, they subsequently registered to practice medicine in New Zealand. So that entire investment, that $37 million, essentially walked out the door and started contributing to New Zealand's economy and tax base.
That really crystallizes the problem, doesn't it? The individual makes a rational choice, maybe, but the home country bears this enormous loss.
That's the tension. And it gets worse because the gap left behind often has to be filled expensively. Africa actually employs up to 150,000 expatriate professionals each year.
So they lose their own trained people, then pay top dollars for foreign experts.
Exactly. At a cost estimated around US $4 billion annually. Imagine if that $4 billion could be invested in keeping their own professionals, improving conditions.
Instead of plugging the gaps. And the most obvious consequence, I suppose, is the impact on health.
Without a doubt. It just makes existing problems worse. Disease, poverty, underdevelopment. Remember the WHO standard, 20 doctors per 100,000 people. Back in 2000, 38 out of 47 countries in sub-Saharan Africa were below that minimum. significantly below in many cases. That has direct, tragic consequences for people's health and lives.
It's a bleak picture, but is there any potential upside? The sources mention this controversial idea of brain gain. What's that about?
It's the theory that maybe the possibility of emigrating and earning high wages abroad could actually encourage more people back home to pursue higher education. The idea is the potential reward gets bigger, so more people invest in skills.
So the prospect of leaving encourages more training within the country.
Potentially, yes. In theory, over time, this could lead to a larger pool of skilled people overall, even accounting for those who leave. A net gain.
That sounds optimistic. Critics most push back on that.
Oh, heavily. Many argue the gain is theoretical or exaggerated, and the immediate drain, the loss, is far more real and damaging, especially in the short to medium term.
Okay, so brain gain is debatable. What about other positives? Remittances.
Now that is a major, undeniable positive. Money sent home by diaspora workers amounts to billions globally. Over $75 billion a year was one figure mentioned. That's often more than 50% of total official development aid. It's a vital flow of cash directly into communities.
A huge economic lifeline for many families and countries.
Absolutely. And there's also some evidence linking skilled immigrants, say in the U.S., with increased foreign direct investment back to their home countries. So the diaspora isn't just sending money, they can be conduits for bigger investments too.
So the drain isn't entirely negative. The diaspora can become an asset.
It can, if harnessed correctly. It shifts the thinking from pure loss to a potential resource pool living abroad.
Which leads us perfectly into solutions. How do we tackle this? The sources presented two really opposing viewpoints on the ethics of it all, didn't they?
Yes, quite starkly. On one hand, you had Norbert Mao, a Ugandan MP. He basically argued that brain drain might be better than brains in the drain. Meaning, if the country can't actually use someone's skills and talents, it's better they use them somewhere else, rather than letting those skills go to waste at home. It's a defense of the individual's right to succeed.
Okay, that's one perspective. What was the counter-argument?
That came from a Lancet editorial, much more critical. It stated that for wealthy countries to poach and rely on highly skilled foreign workers from poor countries is akin to the crime of theft.
Strong words. Theft of human capital.
Exactly. It emphasizes the collective right, the nation's investment that's being lost.
Yeah.
So you have these two poles, individual right versus collective need.
A fundamental tension. So, where does the responsibility lie for fixing it? Let's start with African governments themselves.
Well, since many of the push factors are internal, a lot rests on them. First step, better data. You can't manage what you don't measure. They need to track the flow of professionals properly.
Know the scale of the problem first.
Precisely. And then tackle the root causes we discussed. Improve the economy, create meaningful jobs, especially in the private sector, and fix that enabling environment, reliable power, clean water, decent roads, basic infrastructure.
Things that make professional life viable.
Yes, and maybe specific schemes can help. Nigeria's National Youth Service Corps was mentioned. It makes graduates work domestically for a year, familiarizes them with local opportunities, maybe fosters some loyalty before they look abroad.
And what about engaging the diaspora? Treating them as that potential asset.
Crucial. Governments need to build real links with diaspora organizations. Groups like NIDO for Nigeria, or specific initiatives like Scotland's Globasket example. Make them feel connected, give them a sense of belonging, maybe even responsibility.
And leverage their skills remotely.
Yes. Encourage virtual participation, knowledge sharing online, mentoring, consulting with professionals back home. Technology enables this now.
Okay, so that's the home front. What about the destination countries, the international partners? What's their role?
Well, ethically, their long-term solution has to be training more of their own people, reducing their reliance on recruiting from countries that can ill afford the loss.
Address their own labor shortages domestically first.
Ideally, yes. And they can also help maximize the benefits of migration that does happen. Make remittances easier, cheaper to send, maybe explore tax incentives for migrants sending money home.
So facilitate the positive flows.
Exactly. And we are starting to see some moves towards more managed migration. Formal bilateral agreements like those mentioned between the Philippines or Ghana and the UK's NHS for certain nursing roles.
Trying to make it more ethical, perhaps.
Yeah.
Setting rules.
That seems to be the aim, trying to manage the flow, maybe ensure some benefit returns to the source country. And this is where international bodies like the UN or the ILO really have a role. They need to help create and enforce fair rules of engagement, maybe even compensation mechanisms for this global movement of skilled people.
Right. setting global standards. Okay, so this deep dive has really shown just how complex this is. We've got these strong push factors, unemployment, tough conditions, powerful pull factors, high wages, demand in richer countries, huge costs for Africa's development and health systems. And the solutions seem to need action both at home and internationally.
It's a multifaceted problem, absolutely. Which brings us back to that core tension. Remember that Ugandan MP's phrase, brains in the drain. Given the huge investment Africa makes, that $37 million for 600 doctors example, how do you balance the country's desperate need for that talent against the individual's right, maybe even their need, to seek better opportunities elsewhere?
The human capital model logic.
Exactly. Where does the ultimate responsibility lie? Is it with the individual professional? Is it with the source government to create better conditions? Or is it with the wealthy destination country that benefits so directly from their skills? Something to mull over. Keep digging, keep learning. Thanks for joining us for the deep dive.
Thank you for listening. Join us every Thursday for more insightful conversations.